Okay, the Tory Lanez trial. This was a very interesting trial because in social media, because Tory was so vocal about the case during this whole, 2 years leading up to it, that if you were to judge it on social media, everyone was basically saying that Tory was innocent, Megan's a liar, she shot herself, she's trying to bring an innocent black man down, so forth and so forth. Now, me personally, someone who was familiar with the case and who studied it, a year before it went to trial, in interviews I said, Tory Lanez is going to go to prison over this. Okay? The evidence is there. You have a witness who's going to testify. And I remember in my interview with Tony Yayo, he said something that I've always repeated. And that is, in all the times he's ever seen a shooting happen in his neighborhood, if the person who got shot survived and was willing to take the stand and tell the jury that this is the person who shot me, nobody ever takes something like this to trial. They always plead out. He says that there's no way to get over something like that. I said last February, listen, I'll be very surprised if Tory does not go to prison.
All I'm saying is if somebody's saying you shot him and they still alive and they willing to take the stand, in my eyes, you're not gonna beat the fucking case.
Yeah.
I never seen that in my life. Somebody saying you shot him and you taking it to trial.
Yeah.
And I guess his confidence of taking it to trial, everybody believes him. The internet judge, oh, he lying. This one shot him and the girl shot him. It was a lot of confusion to the case. The sad part about it is just playing with the gun. When you from the streets, you don't play with guns. You don't, know what I'm saying? A gun is nothing to play with. It's not a toy. And some unfortunate happened because they said she got hit in the foot. Wrong or right? She got hit in the foot.
Well, and that's established because the actual doctor got on the stand who took out the bullet fragments, showed pictures, showed that she still has bullet fragments in her. It wasn't glass. It was actual metal fragments.
Right.
And that's that.
She got popped. So, I mean, to me, she's a civilian. Like I said before, there's a difference between a man telling and a woman telling. Unless a woman takes down like a whole cartel or a whole mafia, that's different. But if she looks good and attractive and has a nice body, somebody's going to still mess with her or be cool with her it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If she's a street chick, she'll get a pass. And if she's a civilian, she gets a major pass. Megan Thee Stallion is a civilian. If a civilian get on the stand and say, yo, he shot me, to me, you're going to jail.
But yet, Tory, I guess, felt that the jury was, that the public was behind him, and he took it to trial and threw a Hail Mary. And in the process, he was found guilty on all charges, and he is also facing 20 years. Now, number one, when the initial jury said guilty on all charges, were you surprised?
I was surprised. I was rooting for our man. I really was. I didn't really look into the case so much. I was just kind of soaking up the general atmosphere. And like you said, everybody was kind of rooting for him. Megan was saying a lot of statements about how she's being attacked and no one's standing up for her as a black woman and this and that. So she certainly felt that the court of public opinion was on Tory's side as well. And it just seemed to me that it was kind of a he say, she said case. I understand why he took it to trial. He might have had to take this case to trial. Unlike Praz, who could have did the 16 months and got his $10 million or whatever, his situation is different because he's not a citizen. So if he pleads out a possible plea deal, anything that they would have offered him to plead out to would have probably made him an aggravated felon, which would have made him subject to removal or, more commonly known as deportation. So sometimes your back is against the wall. Plus the fact, Megan made a lot of comments that really damaged her credibility. She was saying, I didn't hear any gunshots. Oh, I didn't get shot. Oh, I cut my feet on glass. And so I could see how, him being backed up into a corner with the deportation thing on the one hand, and then on the other hand, knowing that she's going to have to take the stand, but her credibility being in question, I could see why he might want to roll the dice. And I think that's kind of what it came down to. Kelsey's testimony really wasn't helpful to either side so much. And you just had Tory's attorney's arguments versus what Megan was saying. And I think it could have went either way. Now, having said that, we need to acknowledge that, again, the vast majority of black men in this country, brown men in this country, really don't get a fair shake, right? Because of resources, because of racism. That was not the case in this situation, in the sense that Tory had the ability to hire the best attorneys, right? So this is not a public defender case. This is a case with serious attorneys being paid serious money. Having said that, after the trial, the jury came back and found for Megan. Now, we don't know. I mean, I don't know because I wasn't in there every day. I don't know what the jury heard. I don't know what the jury saw, all the evidence. But apparently, Tory's high-profile, high-paid attorneys couldn't overcome the state's evidence to show that he was not guilty in this case. But again, I'm not sure that he really had an option if he wanted to stay in the country. Now, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, now he is trying to file an appeal and trying to get a mistrial going. And he hired Jose Baez, who represented Casey Anthony in her case. From what I understand, he charges $200,000 a month as a retainer. That's what he charged Harvey Weinstein. Harvey actually is suing him to try to get the $1 million back that he paid him for the 5 months that he was his lawyer. So once again,
$200,000 a month.
$200,000 a month as a retainer. That's what he was paying Weinstein. So they're saying this is his rate.
No, that's a lot of
Crazy.
money. That made me go as an attorney. I'm like, man, that's a lot of money. I don't know what. Well, here's the thing. If you got Harvey Weinstein money and your life is on the line, you just pay it. And attorneys, when you come into my office to hire me, people need to know this. Most of the time, it's not like a menu. You don't walk into an attorney's office and say, okay, give me number 5 and it's going to cost me $7.50. Attorneys, we're looking at you and we're looking at how you present. We're looking at your diction. We're looking at your education, but we're really looking at your finances. Do you have money? And, if poor Rodney comes in and wants to hire me, he might get one type of fee, right? But if Tyrese comes in, Tyrese is going to get another fee. Well, if Harvey Weinstein comes in and this is about his entire life, I might be like $200,000 because you don't have any options. You're going to save the $200,000 a month and then go to prison for the rest of your life? You really should give me all of your money. You should give me $30 million because you're not going to be able to spend this in prison. So I don't think that that's what this attorney charges in general, but I think that's what this attorney thought that the market would bear for that particular case. There's no way Tory's paying $200,000 a month. I mean, I don't know. Tory probably might have a lot of money, but Tory doesn't have Weinstein money. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, we can agree on that. We can agree on that. Okay, so now Tory put out like a voicemail basically claiming that the district attorney, messed up his DNA evidence, and now he's begging the judge to basically throw the case out and do a retrial. At this point, do you see this as a real possibility, or do you think that he's just grasping at straws and is trying to play out his case in social media once again?
Yeah, it kind of seems like you're grasping at straws. Everything that he is talking about could have been addressed in the regular trial. And appellate courts never want to address new facts on the appellate level when you could have addressed them at the trial level. So he's saying, hey, my fingerprints aren't on the gun. My DNA isn't on the gun. The DNA is inconclusive. I can't be excluded, maybe because they stopped the testing in the middle. Well, why didn't your attorney say that? Why didn't you get an expert on the stand to say, hey, most of the time, guys, we don't have good fingerprints on guns. Fingerprints are really only produced by the oils in your hand, but what's the problem? A lot of guns have a lot of oil on them. And so there are fingerprints on the guns, but you can't get a good, usable, clean fingerprint because the gun itself has oil on it. Or a lot of times we're not going to be able to get usable DNA. Sometimes there's not enough. He could have addressed all these arguments that he's making on this phone or whatever recording it is. He could have talked about it at the trial level. And I think that's what the appellate court is going to tell him.
Do you think, in retrospect, do you think it was a mistake for Tory not to take the stand? Because he had the option to take a stand, but they were going to bring up, his past lyrics and his past, violent incidences and stuff like that. In retrospect, do you think he should have taken the stand, or do you think that, ultimately it's not up to the defendant to take the stand and defend themselves? They just have to prove that there's a reasonable doubt.
Yeah. I mean, that what you just said, the latter part is exactly right in the sense that it's always the state's burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you're guilty. However, there are a lot of cases where the jury's going to want an explanation. They really, really are. Now, in this case, I'm not sure that that would have helped because Megan's testimony was, they had her with doing all these lies, right? And so if her testimony isn't powerful because she's trying to take the fifth and she's saying this and that, if Megan, you can impeach her with all of her statements that she said to the police, it's like, well, maybe I don't need to get up on the stand and risk, me saying something poorly, me risk the jury looking at me, maybe I'm not as highly educated, maybe I'm not as eloquent, maybe I'm not as well spoken. Maybe they see me as, ghetto or a rapper or this or that. Maybe they want to pigeonhole me. Why don't I just stay silent, let my attorneys do the work? And, there's not a lot of evidence in this case to tie me to. Let's roll the dice. Now, in hindsight, of course, you say, well, it couldn't have hurt, right? Because he was found guilty anyway. But I think him not taking the stand, I think that was a reasonable decision by his attorney. We talked about the Tasha case and her attorney only arguing for 61 seconds when the judge gave her 20 minutes. There's no excuse for that, right? But in this case, I could see why his attorney say, I'm really not going to put you on the stand. I have been in that case, in that position numerous times where I'm just sitting back and I'm just looking at you and you're telling me about the case. It's okay. Tell me about the case again. And I'm hearing the way that you talk and I'm listening to your words. I'm listening to your affect. And you think I just want you to tell me about the case. But what I'm really doing is listening to see if I can put your ass on the stand. And a lot of times I just can't. No matter if I try to bring you in on a Saturday and a Sunday and prepare you, it's not going to change you. So a lot of times it's better to keep people off the stand. And that was a decision that they made. And it's hard for me to second guess it, to be honest.